Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Today's Torah portion is the third part of the triennial. And because it's the third part of the triennial, it feels like we've come into not quite the middle of the story, but definitely not the beginning either, because this story started two portions 2 years ago in the first triennial and really started 2 years ago last week in the first triennial. This story is one of the longest stories in the whole Torah. It is the story of the Exodus from Egypt. And we're right at that point today where Moses and Aaron first approach Pharaoh to become free. Now, in order to understand this story, you have to understand a little bit about the Pharaoh, because we don't have anything in the United States like a Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was someone who everybody thought was in control. Everybody knew that person could make anybody do anything they wanted. They didn't need to get help from anybody else. They didn't need anybody else to believe they were right. They just did it. They did it because they were able to do it. And it didn't matter who liked it or who didn't. Now, one of the decisions of one of the pharaohs was to have slaves and to make those people who are different than them, who look different, act different, sound different, make them into the slaves. So, what is a slave? A slave is a person who has no choice about what they are going to do when, but rather has to do exactly what their master says whenever their master says it, or they will be severely punished. True story. My parents tell me, anyways, it's a true story, that when I was about 7 years old, they were explaining to me what a slave was, pretty much as I just explained it to you. And apparently, I told them that I knew exactly what a slave was because I had to follow all their rules, whether I wanted to or not. And clearly, I thought of myself as a slave. The important difference is that I would eventually grow up to be an adult, and slaves never stopped being slaves. Also, my parents did something horrible to me. Somebody would intervene, God willing, and protect me, either getting my parents the help they needed or a safe family that I needed. But no one ever takes slaves away from masters. Masters have the ultimate right to abuse their slaves any way they so choose. So the Israelites in the Bible were slaves, and they cried out to God that they did not want to be slaves anymore. God sent Moses and Aaron to first try and solve this difference of opinion with words. But as we will soon see in today's Torah portion and next week's Torah portion, those words don't work. So God had to send the plagues to convince Pharaoh to eventually let the Israelites go. This change, this transition from being a slave to being free took time. It didn't happen right away. A lot of people got hurt along the way. And one of the hardest parts was actually believing that life could be better, even though the slaves had no proof because they did not remember a time, not even the oldest of them remembered a time when life could be better. But they believed it could be better anyways. Nothing in our world ever changes until people believe it can. And since no human being alive has ever pulled him or herself up by the bootstraps, none of us can do things alone. We all need community. We all need help, whether we get it from our family, our friends, our new families. Nobody does life alone. We all need to have allies, friends who will help us make things better over time. It is not an accident in my mind, although it probably is a coincidence. In my mind, it's Basheret. It was meant to be that this Torah portion is the Shabbat before Dr. King's Day, the day we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It is a day set aside to remind us that African Americans have been fighting for their freedom for centuries. And although slavery technically ended in the 1800s, African Americans still suffer serious discrimination, hurtful things that happen to them just because they are African American. Things like getting paid less for the same work, getting treated badly by some teachers and some police officers, having people say and do mean things just because they are African Americans. Dr. King expanded a movement of people saying that this kind of hate was not okay. It is not right. It is not acceptable. And in his words, it was not American. This movement started before him and continues to this very day. It is filled with all kinds of people who say and work to make the world better for themselves and for others. Those of us who are part of this movement have a belief that life can get better, just like the Israelites believed their life could get better. We believe that we have allies, friends that will help make things better, and that we need to be allies and friends to others to make their lives better. We know a lot of people will get hurt and did get hurt and will continue to get hurt along the way. People like United States Capitol Police Officer Brian D. Sicknick, who was killed last week. But we, like the Israelites, believe that it will get better because we will help to make the world just and through justice, peaceful. What does this Torah portion mean to me? It is a reminder that life at times is hard, unfair, and painful. It does change, and all help from the youngest to the oldest are necessary for true societal change to take place. For truly the only thing I can control is my behavior. May I choose to use my life for good. May we be part of a path to a just peace in the coming years. And let us all say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.